Good morning, everyone. Hi, everyone. It's awesome to see you guys again. I'm here with John Bellamy from Direct Messaging. Hi, John.
Hey, how's it going, Paulina? Hey, everyone.
Good, thank you. So thank you so much for joining us again. I'm really excited about this interview because we will be talking today everything LinkedIn. And LinkedIn is a platform that is so underutilized, I reckon, in my mind. So I was like, oh, I've got the LinkedIn expert here. But before we jump into what expertise you have, or more like into the expertise, share with us about why are you someone who can actually confidently talk about LinkedIn?
Well, sorry, my mouth's watering because we're talking about LinkedIn. You know, that's how good it is. For me, I've been on LinkedIn for like pretty early on when it came to Australia. So I remember I was back in corporate. I was working for a company called Salmat that used to do all the letterbox delivery stuff. And I remember sitting at my desk and just started getting these emails, and they were like the connection invites like we all get. And it was such and such wanted to connect with you on LinkedIn. And I'm like, what the hell is this thing? Is this some scam? Is someone trying to do a phishing program? But all of a sudden I'm getting, over weeks, I'm getting more and more and more. And I went, holy crap, I should check this thing out. So I did. I jumped on there. I think I've been on LinkedIn since something like 2007, 2008. So fairly early on in that regard. And long story short, I started using the platform when I was in corporate, started just building connections with my clients that I was working with. And I noticed that clients were leaving. I was dealing with advertising agencies, and clients would go from one agency to another agency. And a lot of the time they would take potentially some of those clients or those other relationships with them. So I was very, not lucky, but astute in the way that I was utilizing it, that I kept maintaining those relationships digitally. Because as we know, like back then, people would just leave a company and it would be like, unless you met them at another networking function or something, you may not never keep in contact with them again. Mm-hmm. So I was using it very early on, just following these people through their careers, through the different companies, and then keeping those sales conversations that we all know we invest so heavily in building relationships, building those engagements. It worked for me in corporate. And then when I was leaving, I started going and utilizing it for myself, launching my own businesses in the recruitment space. And people were like, well, John, you seem to know what you're doing on LinkedIn. Can you show me how to do it? So I went, cool, let's go sell this LinkedIn masterclass thing that I hadn't even created. And the rest, as we like, is history. These are the days of our lives.
How many years ago was that now?
Coming on 14 years.
Oh, wow.
I've been using, so coming on 14 years, I've been using the processes from that. I've been doing the essentially direct response marketing since 1999. So that's like 22 years or whatever it is. But then really leveraging the LinkedIn platform. I'll have to actually check the dates, because I'm pretty sure I can find out the exact date that I started on LinkedIn. But it's been a bloody long time, put it that way. And that's what I do. I've got a company that specializes in that. That's what I get, without COVID, usually get to travel and speak around the globe at conferences about LinkedIn, helping small businesses around that. And it's seen me, acquire shareholding in other companies off the back of the work that we've done off LinkedIn, and it's progressed into that aspect as well. So yeah, I love the platform. I'm very grateful for what the platform's been able to provide me. Let me be clear. I've had to do the work. My team's had to do the work. But I'm very grateful for what it's enabled me to do over the years. I reckon it's the most underutilized social media platform for professionals out there, because people just don't know what the heck they're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're all on LinkedIn and then that's it, right? We just put our profile up. Most of us don't even put the image up. And then it's like, okay, let's just stay there, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
So let's talk about 14 years, you've seen obviously this platform evolve. Tell us a little bit about some of the things you've seen evolve in LinkedIn that you're really excited about.
Yeah, cool. So let me start off by saying they are still definitely behind the game, and they have definitely 100% recognized that. And particularly the last probably 18 months, they're really ramping their development up. to get further, but they're still miles behind the game. They're very closed. And I think it's a bit of an ego play behind them. And a lot of the comments that I hear quite often is that, and I see it, there's this pretentiousness which really pisses me off around certain people that you go and connect with on LinkedIn. It's like, oh, you know, no, I am this, I am that. No, you're a human being that has a job. So now that I've had my rant, back to the platform. What I'm really excited about is there's been this big development over the last probably two and a half years now around the premium subscriptions. And let me before I go further into that, let me say, like, if you are going to be using LinkedIn for commercial gain, okay, you're wanting to develop leads, sales, make money essentially off the platform. Similarly to Facebook, they've got a pay to play element. Yes, you can jump on the platform for free, and they're constantly restricting what you can do on the free version because they want you. They're a company, they're a for-profit entity. They want to make some money to, you know, to play. So over the last two and a half years, there's been this big development on the premium versus Sales Navigator subscriptions. Both of them back in the day used to be pretty evenly spread. But right now, personally, I wouldn't even worry about getting premium. It's about $20, $30 cheaper a month than what Sales Navigator is. But the ability that you have to do with Sales Navigator now is fantastic. So what I mean by that is if you're targeting a specific industry, so let's just say you're targeting coaches, okay? You can dial in and go, I want the professional coaching you know, and training industry as a whole. I might then go and overlay job titles. I only want to talk to the business owners, and I want them to be in this type of company size and within this geographical location from a postcode. So you can get quite targeted from that. And that's leveraging not only the LinkedIn profile data, but also other information that LinkedIn gets their hands on to pull out results. So for a cost of roughly around, and I'm talking Australian dollars here, cost of roughly around $100 a month, it's a little bit cheaper if you pay annually, you're getting a really good targeted database. So I always talk about, yes, the targetability is fantastic, but more importantly for me, it's you're saving wasted time and effort in connecting with the wrong people. So that's, you know, we can never get our time back. So that's a big thing for a lot of people there. The other even probably more huge opportunities right now is LinkedIn's really ramping up their paid advertising strategies and what you're able to do there. So they're finally, you know, how I said they're behind the game, they're finally catching up with the likes of Facebook. For example, if you were doing a paid video strategy, you can now start remarketing people based on time watched of video. We can remarket based on people opening like a lead gen form, so like a Facebook lead form equivalent on LinkedIn. They've got now an what's the word I'm looking for here, on the actual platform, similar to like ManyChat from Facebook Messenger or Chatfuel, all of those chatbot types of things. They've got a paid ad strategy under their sponsored messaging, whereby you can actually start a conversation, give the people a couple of options. So yes, no, I want more, no, I don't. And then sort of tree the structure out with your replies from that aspect. So yeah, there's so many cool things that's happening on the platform, but they're two that I really like. They're still behind the game on the live video. You know, from that aspect, it's still, they will only roll it out to certain individuals. I sit there and I go, some individuals get it and you're like, fair enough. And then others, you sit there and you go, why? I don't have it, you know, big deal, whatever. They're linked in groups. I prefer the Facebook groups opposed to the LinkedIn groups personally. Hence why we have a Facebook group that we've started. But yeah, I mean, I just love it. It's your direct line to business owners on LinkedIn. Like it's there.
Yes, this is what I love about LinkedIn is, like you said, Sales Navigator totally changed my life. Just being able to hound down into the exact like professional details of that person,
Yeah.
right? It's really creepy how much information LinkedIn has about us, right? But that's a good, so that takes me like Facebook versus LinkedIn. So what do you think, who's like the main customer on LinkedIn, and why would you choose LinkedIn, or when should you choose LinkedIn over a different platform?
Yeah, okay, cool. It's a really good question. And I don't think there is like a definitive, you should go Facebook or LinkedIn at all. Where it could be a bit closer to that is if you're like a local business, like a beauty business. So if you're a hairdresser or a beautician, Facebook, Instagram would naturally be you know, a better place to be advertising on. Not to say that you couldn't be marketing on LinkedIn, because let's be all clear, like a CEO is still a human being who might still need to get a haircut or something waxed, or you know, facial or whatever from that aspect. But it's the natural progression would be to those other platforms. Where we're finding LinkedIn works extremely well is more of your higher ticket. So we typically work with, like in our business, we typically work with coaches, consultants, and then traditional service-based businesses from that aspect. So typically, if a client has got an annualized client value of like bare bones minimum sort of $5,000, then that's where you want to start looking at LinkedIn. If they're running a traditional sales model where they've got a pipeline in place, and you know, it might be them running the pipeline, or they may have a sales team in place, you know, LinkedIn's a great place to be, because you're building that connection. You've got that relationship that you can build, bring them through a nurture funnel over time. But they would be the main things. As far as the industry specifically, that we're seeing that are getting a lot of traction. I mean, there's like, honestly, there's so many that we've worked with, like personal coaches have got a really good, we've worked with SaaS companies, IT service companies, like traditional business coaches from that perspective. We've worked with marketing companies, people who are starting a podcast, looking at driving connections on LinkedIn to build interviews. We've worked with personal trainers on LinkedIn that have got great results. You know, so it's such a variety. But I want to be clear, and this is the thing where I think a lot of people go astray. And I don't think it's a LinkedIn problem. I think it's a whole of marketing problem. But people are looking for that magic pill. And just like Facebook, you can't put a post on, you can't send a message to somebody on Facebook, build a group, and then just think that they're miraculously going to hand over a credit card. You've actually got to do some work. You've got to follow up. So if you're using LinkedIn from a messaging perspective, as far as connecting with somebody and messaging them, you need some type of follow-up strategy behind that, whether that's on LinkedIn and then taking the conversation off LinkedIn to a phone call, or transitioning to your CRM like a Keep or something like that, and then running some nurturing cycles. You've got to do some work. You've got to be open to speaking to somebody. That's the thing. I think the ones that fail, and they're probably the same people who fail on Facebook and Instagram and all that, think that I've gone to some funnel hacker school, such and such said I can just do this thing, and then they put it on there with zero ad spend behind it, and go, well, why didn't someone buy my $2,500 product yesterday? I'm a nobody. I put $3 behind ad spend, and why haven't I made money? That's the thing. Yeah.
So if people would like seriously consider using LinkedIn as a platform, what would be like the things you would suggest to them they start looking at?
Yeah. So very first thing, number one, is your target market on the platform? First off, if your target audience is not on the platform, don't waste your time. And that's any platform. You know, don't waste your time. The second thing that they need to really get clear on is well, what's the outcome that I'm looking at? Like, what am I looking for here? What am I actually looking? I was speaking to my accountant the other day, and they're like, John, we don't want to do any lead gen right now. We purely want to use LinkedIn as a branding exercise to get our profiles on there, because our presence on LinkedIn is like nothing. So how do we do that? And then they go, and then we just want to do some branding, like paid ad strategy, just purely to get the brand within the local market. And then we'll go stage 3, some lead gen. So it really depends on the strategy. We'll speak to somebody else and they're like, hey, I just want to connect with these people, drive conversations, close deals. So it depends on that strategy. So once you know that your target market's on there, you know what the outcome is and the strategy that you're going to deploy to achieve that. We then need to go, okay, well, what's that market to message match going to look like? And then how do I portray that on LinkedIn? So where that then gets portrayed comes down to your personal LinkedIn profile, your LinkedIn company page. And then if you're doing a messaging, like a connection strategy, what's the connection message and the subsequent messages look like, and the time frame between those messages. And then if we go on paid ad strategy, well, that's a whole nother ball game. Are we doing brand awareness, lead gen? There's so many different little factors. Yeah.
So the direct, something that I've noticed and we've talked about before is the direct messaging campaigns are really, like, that's where LinkedIn is really great at, right? Because if you're on LinkedIn, you already have in comparison to something like Facebook and Instagram, where anyone can follow you, the fact that it's just connections you make, that's exactly this, right? Like the trust is instantly much bigger for some reason on LinkedIn than it would be on any other platform. So the direct messaging strategies, like works much better on LinkedIn than on any other platform, right? Because people are expecting to engage.
Yeah, I agree, and I'm going to challenge you on a couple of things there as well. Like, I think direct messaging, like as a vehicle, so whether you use direct messaging via email, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, whatever, I think the vehicle works if there is an intentional, if there's an intentional process behind it. And I think where it doesn't work a lot of the time is once again, I'll go to the whole funnel hacker scenario. Someone goes, oh, it worked for this guy, I'm just going to rip off and duplicate. But there's no personality, there's no connection to you as like who you are, and there's no real intention behind it. So this is where you hear it all the time. Oh, I hate jumping on LinkedIn, or I hate getting these messages on Facebook because people just spam me. And the spam, in my opinion, comes from because there hasn't been that the market to message match. They're just pushing it out to anybody, but the intention behind the message hasn't been clear from that aspect. So when you can get those things right, it will work really well. For example, we were writing copy for a client the other day on their LinkedIn messaging sequence, and it literally, actually, I'm just going to pull it up here because I'll read it out exactly what we said. So rightly or wrongly, people might agree with what was said or not, but the intentions behind it. So we've like the connection message. So I'm looking over here. It's like, hey, such and such here from company name. I'm looking to connect with this target market like yourself. So association professionals like yourself who have an interest in helping their members close the, outcome, knowledge to action gap, whatever it is. Are you open to connecting? So it's very intentional based. I'm looking to connect with people exactly like you to help them solve X, or who have an interest in helping their clients solve X. And when they accept, the thank you message that we've gone was like, hey, great to connect first name. Listen, below are a couple of reasons why I wanted to connect with you. Once again, we're being very intentional. So the first one was for this client was, I'm a big believer in leadership and innovation, and I feel we could have a quality conversation. Because he's connecting with CEOs within associations that are all this is who I am. I'm massive in leadership and innovation. So hopefully that's a fit. And then secondly, he's gone, and by the way, through my role at X company, we believe our solution could perhaps be a good fit for, association professionals like you and their members. Listen, I don't know yet, but we think it could be a good fit. And then it's just, once again, intentional based marketing. Over the coming weeks, I thought I'd just share a little bit more info about, what we're working on and where we feel there could be some things that we could talk about. Essentially, I hope that's cool. Hey, by the way, if you want to follow our company page, here's the link. So it's not like, hi, we connected, buy my crap. It's like, hey, this is why recapping why I wanted to connect with you. This is what I wanted to talk about over the coming weeks and share with you. I hope that's okay. like it's conversational but intentional conversations.
I love the fact that you just said that it's about the intention, and the reason why you feel spammed is because it's not intentional. And I think I've probably noticed it in a lot more of our platforms like Facebook and Instagram, that it's not very intentional, or it's very salesy. People are like, great, thanks for the follow. Here is the stuff to buy, right? And you're like, just because I followed you doesn't mean I want to spend thousands of dollars with you. Right. I want to get to know you. And I think that's the barrier, right? That we, as like in the digital world, you have the 17 to 21 touch points where you need to meet people. So connecting is just one way of being with that person. I do feel though, and I don't know if it's about the word connection versus following, or if it's just the way the culture of LinkedIn works. But I do feel that people are much more selective on LinkedIn of who they connect with and who they don't.
100%. Yeah, 100%. Like the amount of messages that I'll get through, for example, where I might, before accepting, I might just actually respond to them. I'll say, hey, thanks for reaching out. Can you just, like, I'm curious, like, because you can see it's just like a stock standard message. And I'll just be like, hey, I'm curious, like, how do you think that I can add value, or how do you think we can add value to each other in the network, in the connection? And I'll do that quite selectively. Like a lot of people, I'll just go and accept, and I'll be like, oh, okay, cool, no worries. And then we'll put them through our process or whatever. But I think the biggest challenge and 100% mistake that most business owners are making, specifically on LinkedIn, and the same goes probably for Facebook and the likes as well, is that someone friends them, or they friend somebody, or they connect on LinkedIn, or someone connects with them on LinkedIn, and then it's radio silence. Like, we're connected, but then nothing happens. It's like going to a conference or a networking event, hustling for business cards to see who's got the most business cards and connections, and then never following them up. And let's be clear, 99.9999% of people do that religiously. They go get the business cards, they throw them in the drawer, never speak to them ever again. And they're leaving money on the table. So if I talk about the math for a moment, this is the way that I like using it. Now, people go, you're an unemotional prick, John, because you're just looking at putting a number on people and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, well, we're in business, so let's just have a look at it from that way.
Everything is about numbers.
Yeah. So we know on average, and I'm just talking about across our client pool. So we know that on average, it costs us, or our clients, because they pay us the money, on average around $2.86 to around about $18.30 roughly, to acquire a connection. So that's going outbound, saying John wants to connect with Paulina, and Paulina clicks the accept button. So it costs us around that, in that range. So if you know that every single time, like even on the bottom entry level figures of say $3 for round figures, we know that every single time you connect with somebody on LinkedIn, you're already $3 in. It's physically cost you $3. Okay. From that aspect, when you're doing that hundreds and then thousands of times over a year, couple of years, whatever it might be, that starts to add up for a lot of people. Naturally, we want to get a return. And when and particularly when I'm speaking to like business owners who have got salespeople, it's really interesting because they never think of it that way. And you're like, well, hold on a second. Every time your sales team member is doing this, that's it. It's the same going to a networking event or a conference. Like, I love, people go, John, why would you fly, not right now, but why would you go and fly to the US? It costs you $5 to $7 grand to go to the US for a week and go and speak in front of 100 people or whatever, and you didn't get paid for it. And I'm like, well, because I know how many leads I got off the back of it, and it's just the cost of lead. It's like those cost of connections, cost of lead, and I know what our conversion rates typically are. So we just, there's just those things that we've got to actually just look at between there. So there's cost of connection, cost of conversation, and then obviously cost of conversion and the rest out of there. But really start to think of, okay, if I'm going to go and connect with 100 people a month on LinkedIn or whatever it might be, that might cost me, it's cost me $300 if it's $3 a connection. I'm $300 in for those 100 people. So if I am not following them up, I'm just essentially blowing through. You might as well go and buy a nice bottle of wine because you're getting the same outcome. So,
well, you're probably a little bit happier with a bottle of wine, to be
probably,
fair.
yeah.
After you had it. So you make a valid point. I think I'm at fault at this as well. Gone
We've
to
all
an
been
event,
at fault.
and had grabbed a business card and never followed up. As same with LinkedIn. So what do you think would a re-engagement campaign look like?
Yeah, a re-engagement campaign. So for example, I'll use the example of we've been to a networking event, right? So even though I know COVID times and all that, there's not that many, but everyone gets it. So we go to a networking event, local chamber of commerce. Most people probably pick up 5, 8 business cards or whatever it might be. And then they usually go home and put in the drawer or whatever. What I would do is go home, look them up. Are they on LinkedIn? Are they on Facebook? This is, once again, we're talking about LinkedIn, but you can do this on anything. Does this person, have a LinkedIn profile? If they do, send them a connection request, but personalize it. So, you're sending it to 5 or 8 people or whatever it might be. It's just like, hey, John, it's Shane here. We met at XYZ, met at the Tauranga Chamber of Commerce last week or the other day, really great chat about XYZ. Love to connect. Well, when they accept, follow them. I'd probably send them an email as well. Hey, I just connected with you on LinkedIn as well. But I would send them an email, follow up, and then once they accept LinkedIn, start doing a follow-up message. Now, if we talk specifically re-engagement, what I would be doing, in fact, we're just doing this one now for a client, is they've given us a Sales Navigator search of everybody that essentially has been through some type of sequence that hasn't responded between sort of 6 and 9 months ago. So we've got about 1,000 people that we're going to message over the next month or two for them. And those ones, we're just asking them a question, hey, John, it's been a little while since we last spoke about blah, 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 or since we last had a chat with you about building, I don't know, a remote team, for example. I'm curious, how's business going for you? How's business going for you currently? And do you have on the cards in the next 3 to 6 months or whatever it might be, something around building a remote team? But really intentional. If it is, let me know. Or we could even go further. Hey, John, it's been a little while since we last spoke with you about building a remote team. Listen, I'm not sure if this is still on the radar for you or not. I know it was last time we spoke. Anyway, I just thought I'd share this quick case study or this video or this resource with you that shares XYZ. Trust you find it of value. Hey, let me know if you've got any questions. We're more than happy to jump on a call or share some help with you. And we just want to re-engage them that way. I wouldn't just send one message. I'd probably send a few over a period of time. Once again, if you've got a sales team, incorporate a phone call in that process as well. Maybe a direct mail letter. I don't know. There's a bunch of things you can do. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, I think every one of us, and I have the same, I've got like 3,000 connections, and in reality, I've done that, what you're saying, done nothing with it, right? I was like, great, I've got these 3,000 people, they don't even, you're buried under their 3,000 people and they don't even know that you exist. So absolutely, I totally agree. Wow, I think I need to do some work. Like the rest of it.
The key is just being like, I know you've heard me say this a gazillion times, so it's just being human, like being a real person with them, and just like, hey, the thing I have might be of value to you, it might not. Just let me know. I'm getting one at the moment, like one of the messages we're building. We launched this Facebook group, whatever it was, end of December, January. We've got like 100 or something people in there right now, and we've just started a messaging process on LinkedIn to say, hey, we're building this group. It's on Facebook, come over and check it out, blah, blah, blah. And it cracks me up, the amount of people that come back. Like, you've got legitimate questions where it's like, hey, John, I'm curious, like, you're like, I know that you specialize in LinkedIn. Why are you building the group on Facebook? Like, just curious, like, tell me why. By the way, I've joined, or I'm not going to join because I don't use Facebook or whatever it might be. And then you get the others going, oh, the old smart ass, people have got too much time on their hands, I think. But the amount of people that are building over there, it's really interesting. But you will get those questions, like, people are naturally curious. Like, we're getting that, hey, why are you building it on Facebook? And we're going back to them, and we're sitting there and we're like, hey, it's weird, right? and totally, relevant question, and thanks for asking. And we're saying the whole reason we're building it on Facebook is purely risk mitigation. All the stuff that's going on in the world right now with people being cancelled and shut down and platforms knocking people off, we're like, we don't want to be too heavy on one platform. So, we've got, I don't know, 16,000 connections or whatever it is on LinkedIn. Probably plenty of people who have got more than me, but I know I've got a good relationship with mine. So we've got that many connections on LinkedIn. We really don't have a big presence at all on Facebook. So we're like, okay, well, I could go and build a LinkedIn group, but then I'm too top heavy. If something happens and, I get LinkedIn cancels John, well, there goes that data. I've got all of that backed up with all their email addresses and everything like that, so I'll be fine. But we're just looking at that risk mitigation and that whole of cross-channel marketing strategy that can come behind that. Because as we know, some people will engage more on LinkedIn, others will engage more on Facebook, others will just engage more. I'm not on social, so give me a phone call or whatever it might be. And we just need to be where our ideal clients are. That's all we need to do.
Awesome. So before we finish, what would be one thing people would want to take away from this interview with you right now?
Yeah, cool. I think the big thing for most people, and once again, because I don't know where everybody's at, but I think the very first thing that they need to do is go, okay, well, number one is, are my clients on LinkedIn? Okay, and if they want to reach out or something like that, I can show them whether they are or not. Number one, are they on LinkedIn? Number two needs to be, okay, if they are on LinkedIn, do I actually want to explore LinkedIn as a strategy? So do I want to right now add LinkedIn as another lead generation vehicle if that's the way that they're going? And most importantly about that decision, am I committed to a long-term play? Okay, so what I mean by that is, and it's not even really long-term, but they've got to go at least 6 to 12 months of trial and error getting their strategy right on LinkedIn, just like anything else. And if they've got those two things, if they're committed to those, like, yes, our target market and we're committed to a strategy, well, great, let's have a chat. That's when we should do things. But I wouldn't be worried about, I need to go and fix up my profile, I need to get my messaging right and all that, unless you know your clients are there and you're committed to actually diving into the platform. Yeah.
Awesome. So I know you've got some goodies for us. You've given us a few resources. So thank you so much. What are the resources all about?
Yeah, so the resources are there so if you have made that decision that, you know what, LinkedIn is there and I should be doing something, there's a bunch of resources in there. So there's essentially a checklist to help you get moving. We give you an overview of our strategy. We've got some psychographical information. We talk about Sales Navigator. There's a whole bunch of bits and pieces in there. There's also, I think, our link to our group as well. So if you want to come and join our group from that aspect as well, but we're just here to help, like from that perspective. It's, if we end up doing business together, spectacular. But if we don't, that's cool as well. We just want to keep adding to those resource libraries, because as we know, it's 2 degrees of separation, and I can probably introduce you to your next $100,000 client, and you can probably introduce me to mine.
Yeah, totally.
So that's the thing. The amount of business that we've done through people where we're connected, had a conversation, never going to do any work with them, but they've introed us to somebody else through their network. That's what it's all about. It's purely by helping people.
100%. Well, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate the generosity, and I'm sure that our community members will too. If anyone has any questions, let me know. I'm sure that John will be happy to connect with you guys. You are that kind of client. You happily connect with anyone, right? And have a chat.
Yeah,
so
absolutely. Yeah.
100%. Thank you so much, John.
No worries. Thanks, Paulina.
See you later. Bye.
Bye.